The following is a presentation of the Broadband Universe, brought to you by Lit Communities. Get the expertise you need to bring a high-speed network to your hometown. Lit Communities. You deserve better internet. By Vetro FiberMap. Vetro builds software that makes it radically simpler and faster for broadband providers to plan, design, build, and operate their fiber optic networks. By OnTrack Incorporated, providing telecommunications services to a myriad of service providers nationwide. OnTrack, a proven leader in connectivity. And by Bawtree. Build faster, reduce costs, improve quality. Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Broadband Universe. I'm Craig Corbett and it is a pleasure to welcome today's guest, the CEO of SiFi Networks, Ben Bawtree Jobson. Ben, welcome to the Broadband Universe.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Craig.
Indeed. Obviously some big news this week from SiFi Networks. We'll get to that in just a moment. But before we begin, let's talk a little bit about your background in the industry. I know SiFi Networks has been around for about 8 years. Give us the 30,000-foot overview, if you would.
Gosh, yeah, I think actually we're approaching our 10th anniversary.
Nice.
Sooner rather than later. It's amazing how time flies. But yeah, we set up the business always with the intent that we would be creating open access competitive networks and really changing the landscape of broadband in the US. We, at that time in the early days, we were looking at Germany and the UK as well. But ultimately, we decided to focus all of our attentions on the US market. We just saw that the need was so vast and the opportunity so great that we couldn't pass up that opportunity to try and create something really special. So by special, I guess what I'm talking about is what we create is a FiberCity. And what that means for us is it's not just about providing broadband to the home. It's about providing a network that can provide for smart city applications, 4G, 5G connectivity, enterprise class services, as well as home internet, video, phone services. Our model is a little bit different to the US, a little bit new, where instead of building out the network with the intent of providing all the services ourselves, actually we build out the network and then we wholesale access out to multiple other service providers, so enabling competition in that last mile.
And the beauty of having competition typically means that the consumer, the end user, wins in that equation. And without question, we have seen open access elsewhere in the world to be something that is extremely functional and successful. And you talk about the opportunity here in the United States. I view it as sort of a golden age, if you will, with regard to the opportunities that are there. We are well behind the curve, no doubt, but that does provide opportunities for organizations such as SiFi Networks. I know initially the approach was to have utilized the public-private partnership approach, but that has changed to where everything now is completely handled by SiFi Networks. Talk about that, if you would.
Yeah, that's right. When we initially started on this venture, we came about it with the idea that the municipality should have more of a stake and interest in the network. Ultimately, they would be our main anchor tenant, and then we would assist them in wholesaling out access to other ISPs. We'd take care of all the construction operation on their behalf, and then ultimately they would end up owning that asset. And what we found is, despite that being really a fantastic model for consumers, for municipalities, and for ourselves as well, that ultimately we just face too many barriers in terms of lobbying from incumbents around municipality involvement in public ownership or intervention in what is perceived as very much a private sector market. But what that did do was enable us to create an amazing platform of partners and structures and people within our organization ready for deploying open access. And so in about 2016, 2017, I think it was, we decided to completely transition and pivot our model from being focused on PPPs, public-private partnerships, to being focused on 100% privately building it. So it's the same model where we fund it, build it, own it, and then wholesale out that infrastructure to other providers. It's just instead of relying on municipalities to be a large tenant on the network, we've privately fund it entirety without any obligation on a public utility or municipal authority.
And you mentioned the private funding. This effort is well capitalized. I think $2 billion at present, and part of the equation obviously is the knowledge that investments in fiber networks are not short-term investments, but rather long-term investments. And I know that if I'm correct, your view is that you can see that the current funding just being a fraction of what you'd like to see eventually. Talk about that if you would.
Sounds like you've done research, Craig. Yeah, there's a huge market out there, and even our approach at the moment and our grandest ambitions will still only reach a small percentage, frankly, of the overall US market. But at the moment we have access to deploying $2 billion worth of capital into deployments. But our ambitions are to look for 5 to 6 times that over the next 5 years. Really, the only thing that's the only limiting factor is how quickly you can get out there and build it.
All right. And when you talk about the speed of building a network, SiFi Networks is extremely busy at present, and that brings us to the big announcement from this week from Mesa, Arizona. They are the latest in the FiberCity family. Talk about that big announcement.
Yes, certainly. So, delighted with the progress we've made there. Arizona's an incredible state. We've been very heavily focused on California and Illinois, Massachusetts, New York, these other states, and we've been working really hard to find the best way into starting deployments in Arizona. And so we've been working with Mesa for well over a year in developing the best way and means for us to start deploying in the city. It's just a fantastic opportunity. Unfortunately for Mesa, as it stood yesterday, they had very little opportunity to choice and to benefit from fiber connectivity. But now they'll have a path to a multitude of options.
Let's talk a bit about that with regard to what a customer of this opportunity will see. From my understanding, it will be a phenomenal bandwidth at a phenomenal price. Share with us that.
Yeah, certainly. So, in terms of the network we're building on day one, everyone in the market for the last 2-3 years have been talking about making sure you can get a gigabit speed, to the home. Actually, we're going out there, and the network itself will be capable of delivering 10 gig to the home. So we're always trying to go above and beyond to make sure that the network is fit for 30 plus years. We're not always just looking to meet the needs of today. We're always thinking about 30-year needs, and that comes back to what you were saying earlier, Craig, in terms of the longevity of the investment. And that's the whole philosophy that we come at this, is that we're investing in this infrastructure for 30, 40, 50, 60 plus years. And so making sure that we've got the network architecture correctly developed on day one, so we don't have to come back and re-engineer all the passives, making sure we've got control of the active equipment so that we can upgrade that suitably over time as the needs of the consumers evolve, is a top priority to us, and is what makes it such an attractive proposition for ISPs to come and work with us to gain access to the market without having to deploy the capital, because we take all of that burden on.
And that's such a huge part of that equation. One of the aspects of what SiFi Networks provides in their FiberCity family is the FiberCity Aid program, because bridging the digital divide, connecting the unconnected, is a huge part of the challenge here in the United States. And there in Mesa, I think upwards of 33,000 households will benefit from the FiberCity Aid program. Talk about that if you would.
Yeah, it's an initiative that we're really proud of at SiFi. It's where we weren't satisfied that just building out the infrastructure past every single home and business in cities that we go to was enough, because we were hearing from consumers there that still the prices were too high. They couldn't afford it in lower income segments of the community that had been starved of internet, starved of affordable priced options for so many years, that they needed more. And I think the federal initiatives are brilliant for helping provide access for those low-income communities to high-speed internet. But one, we don't know how long they will last for, and two, we think that we could go further and do more. So we ourselves are privately subsidising the 33,000 units. Approximately 15% of the households in Mesa will be able to gain access to more affordable options. It could be half the price or less than the retail rates that the providers are providing without our subsidy. And now those 33,000 homes are selected by the municipality. It's not up for us to qualify who qualifies and who doesn't. We leave that to municipality, who understands the community's needs from that perspective and a social impact perspective better than us. So we look to their guidance for that, and then as soon as we're building past those homes, then we'll be opening up that offering for those homes to benefit from through the service providers on our network.
Right. That is a fantastic investment in the community, and certainly life-changing for those able to benefit from that. You're watching the Broadband Universe podcast, brought to you in part by Lit Communities. Light up your community. You deserve better internet. By Vetro FiberMap, radically simpler fiber management. By OnTrack, a proven leader in connectivity. And by Vitruvi, build faster, reduce costs, and improve quality. Our guest today, the CEO of SiFi Networks, Bawtree Jobson. And Ben, you talked about the opportunities there in Mesa, Arizona. That is but one of the many projects on the drawing board for SiFi Networks. I think you're in eight or nine states now here in the U.S. and dozens of projects. Give us an overview of what's going on there.
Yes, so we are currently in active construction in 7 cities. We're soon to turn that, hopefully by the end of the year, into more like 20 cities. And then we expect to have a cadence of an additional 20 to 25, 30 cities per year after that. It is a case of a large race. There's a lot of other entities sort of on our heels, and that's great, and that's what the market needs. We're really excited about what's going on out there at the moment. I think our proposition really resonates with community leaders, because we're not going in there to be a monopoly. So having a fiber infrastructure overbuild today is great against the telcos and the cable cos that stand there. But fast forward another 10, 15 years where fiber is the dominant player in the market, and you have yourselves another monopoly. So by having our type of philosophy, where you've got an independent operator of that infrastructure that's allowing competition to take place, you're not only making sure you've got the best infrastructure, but you're making sure you've got competition, which, as you mentioned earlier, means improved pricing, improved customer service, and ultimately you end up with a competitive, hopefully maybe not perfect market competition, but as close to it as you're going to get versus what you see out there today in terms of duopoly and monopoly environments.
I am intrigued with the approach that SiFi Networks has taken to the selection of ISPs that can participate in providing service to the fiber cities in the SiFi Networks family. It's not just anybody that qualifies. Talk about how that decision is made in each of your markets.
Yeah, so we go through an RFP process historically with the cities that we have to select which ISPs are going to be most appropriate for the market. We try and come up with a good blend of ISPs that provide the right mix of different types of services or different types of engagement with the community, studies have found across Europe, and I think they're beginning to be proliferated here in the US now, that where you have multiple brands, you get an increase in penetration. It means more consumers ultimately on the network, which means you're getting more efficiency, which means you can ultimately have more cost-effective pricing, better services. The more scale that you have. So for us, it's about creating the right blend of different ISPs on the network that can serve different segments of the market. You have some ISPs that will be very specialist in serving businesses, some that might be specialists in MDUs, some for single families, and some might be fantastic at doing it all. And so we like to try and find that right blend for each city, and each city is a little bit different.
Absolutely. Not a cookie cutter approach, but a unique solution to each of the fiber cities in the SiFi Networks family. I'm intrigued from an infrastructure standpoint. I made note of the fact that micro trenching is going to be utilized in the installation of the network there in Mesa. That is something that is growing in popularity with a lot less interruption, if you will, to roadways and right-of-ways. Talk about that, if you would.
Yeah, certainly. It's something that we've been big proponents of since we entered the US, a decade ago. And we've only seen it improve in terms of its ability to be deployed in safe, responsible, fast production rate manners. Where it's really improved a lot, I'd say, is in the remediation in particular. I think that caused some concerns for some municipalities. There's been some entities out there doing it at crazy shallow depths, 2 inches depth. What we wouldn't call that micro trench, we'd sort of call that almost like a nano trench. It's just not the right way to be doing it. You can cause all sorts of trouble. So we always make sure we're at least 6 to 8 inches, sometimes 10 inches depth of cover. Make sure it's appropriate depth so that maintenance is very straightforward for the streets coming in after it. And we've done a lot of R&D ourselves on the technology, working with the manufacturers of blades to machines and remediation materials to try and hone in the right mixture really for each city. And again, each city slightly different. Cold weather states require slightly different treatment to the sunnier parts of the country.
I know it is an exciting time right now at SiFi Networks with more than 24 projects in various stages of your construction development process. I'll ask you to pull out the crystal ball. Take us 5, even 10 years down the road. Where do you see SiFi Networks here in the U.S.?
Without revealing too many secrets, I don't know. Where I'd like to see it go, and is to be a national player or an owner of open access infrastructure. We'd like to see SiFi at the forefront of open access across America, and I see us taking it ourselves through greenfield builds over the next 5 years, and plus as we finish the construction of those cities, and then we believe there'll be significant M&A activity. And we'd want SiFi to be leading in that, in acquiring multiple other networks, maybe taking closed networks and taking them open access, and creating that environment across the US, and that can only be a benefit for US consumers.
Well, I know that the consumers, the 500,000 strong in Mesa, Arizona, are happy to have become the newest in the family of SiFi Network's fiber cities, and we congratulate you and the SiFi Network team on that big announcement, and we greatly appreciate you spending time with us here on the Broadband Universe today. Look forward to checking in with you down the line to see what progress is being made.
Hopefully thick and fast.
Indeed.
Thank you, Craig.
On behalf of Ben, absolutely, and Ben, thank you again for your time. On behalf of Ben, we thank you for letting us be a part of your day. We'll see you next time right here on the Broadband Universe. So long, everyone.